Yes. Hello, guys. A very good evening to all of you, and a very good evening to all the audiences who have been watching us and who has joined us on LinkedIn, on us YouTube, and also will be watching the recorded videos. Dear friends, and all the fintech enthusiasts, this episode is only for you. And today, this episode will unfold a lot of insights which we would not have been knowing till now. Today, we'll be discussing the Paytm Bank crisis. Yes, you heard me right. Paytm Bank crisis. We are not talking about Paytm, but Paytm Bank. And this crisis might be an opportunity to unfold and unfurl a lot of insights, a lot of lessons which will be hidden in this crisis. To decode it, to dissect it, we have a panel of stellar panelists among us. And I really request, I'm so excited to welcome all of you. And I'm also seeking that one by one, if you can give us the introduction to our audiences, that will make a lot of sense. Abhilash, can you go ahead?
For sure. Thank you so much, Gaurav. So, like when you have such a wonderful host, there's only so much you can do, right? So guys, to everyone in the audience, I'm Abhilash, Vice President of Strategy at Neo ITO. So I'm from the IT services background and mostly looking into business model strategy and like growth initiatives.
Thank you, Abhilash. Ayushi?
Hey, thanks, Gaurav, for having me here. I head the pre-sales function at Latent View, global pre-sales function at Latent View. It's a pure play data analytics company in India. I head close to three regions: US, APAC, and Europe, and handle like close to six verticals, which includes financial services. Very interested for the discussion today and looking forward. Thanks again for the
You're
opportunity,
also
Gaurav.
looking forward as you are the only lady in the house. Yes, Shivesh, can you go forward?
Yeah, Gaurav, thanks for having me also here with uh, great persons here. I see you, Abhilash, Ayushi, or will be adding a lot of values to this. I will also try to add value over here. With my experience, I have been working with Informatica in data management consulting space. I am principal consultant there. So, yeah, let's the insight and things unfold, and we will see what comes next.
Perfect. And to our audiences, this time we are also having an audience representative to make sure that none of your comments, none of your insights, or none of your things which are there in the chat box may go unnoticed. So I welcome Kaushik. Kaushik, if you wish to give a small introduction about yourself.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone who's tuned in. I'm Kaushik. I work for one of the fintech companies here, one of the leaders in market share when it comes to UPI P2P payments. And yeah, I'm going to listen to most of you guys speaking about the topic. This is one of the burning topics, so want to gain some insights and maybe also share something back in return. Thank you.
Absolutely, Kaushik. This case has been a case of compliance, a case of customer trust, a case of a poster boy of the fintech industry, that is Paytm. It has been the poster boy, it has been the flag bearer, it has been the keystone of the fintech industry, which is growing with 20% CAGR. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'll ask Ayushi to go for the holistic sector. But this is the fintech industry which has the potential to lift millions out of the poverty, to lift millions of the investment back into the formal channel of the government circulatory or the economic circulatory system. And here we are dealing with this crisis. To give the fresh intake and to put the first punch into this case, to understand the in basics, that Ayushi, I want to start with you. In simple words, can you explain to our audience क्या हो गया पेटीएम बैंक के साथ? Simple words में थोड़ा सा for the layman and also for the technical people. Yes, Ayushi, over to you.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks. That's a wonderful question we should start with. So to start with, right, as you're mentioning, Paytm, or before I get into Paytm, fintech industry overall, right? It's third largest in the world. That Indian fintech industry, I would like to repeat myself, right? And we are the pioneers in UPI transactions and multiple other things, right? Just to state some of the numbers, there are close to 3,000 plus firms associated with the regulatory bodies, that is DPIIT in India, right? And not only that, we have an highest adoption rate, which is close to 87%. Don't you guys think it's huge, right? And it's amazing
Yeah,
how
yeah.
fintech has been growing and how fintech has reached this state as we are now. But always there are some downsides. There are some issues that creeps in, and that makes something visible, right? And that's what it's happening. All the financial irregularities or the compliances issues which has been reported by RBI or multiple other regulatories, right, have tainted this beautiful picture of our fintech industry. Again, just to point out a few facts which RBI has themselves reported. At an average, every day, 83 cases, financial fraud cases are reported. At an average, every day, every hour, and every year. You can imagine the volume of financial frauds that's happening across India, right? Not only that, the financial frauds, which is the online and credit card frauds, they are increasing at an average of 34% year over year, which is
Hmm.
again a huge thing. And I believe we need to take some of the preventive actions on some of these things, right? And I would again, hand it over to one of my panelists here to throw some lights on Paytm and how it's happening. Maybe Gaurav, you can take it up.
Yes, Abhilash,
For sure.
please.
For sure. So I can do that. So like Ayushi mentioned, and like none of us need introduction. Like fintech is like huge in India, and with UPI, like India is pioneering like cross-border payments in different countries like France, Singapore, Malaysia. So this has been like India has been really like killing it in this space. And I have to add, wherever there is innovation, there is bound to be risks involved. There is bound to be different challenges involved, different kinds of roadblocks, like government stepping in because this is the first time even they are facing all these issues. So that is, I think, expected to a certain extent. Um, in the case of Paytm Payments Bank, though, this has been happening quite a few number of times over the years. So just to give a quick idea to the audience about like Paytm Payments Bank. So essentially, what Payments Bank and a traditional bank, how they differ is essentially it has most of the operations except for two critical functions that a bank does, that is giving out loans and credit cards. So apart from that, all of the function, or almost all of the functions these payment banks can do, as in, yeah.
Okay.
So um, so a large part of the underlying services, like for Paytm, it is very dependent on the payments bank. So starting in, I think it started around 2016 is when RBI gave permit to the Paytm Payments Bank to act as a payments bank. And then subsequently it started the payments bank service to the customers in 2017. And this is when like Paytm was getting into the peak of its hype. And uh, just 1 year down the line, like 2018, they got their first ban to stop new accounts, the
Okay.
Paytm Payments Bank. So there were compliance issues in 20, and fast forward 2021, the RBI gave a 1 crore fine for non-compliance. So that was actually strike number two. And in 2023, there was another one, 5.39 CR fine for again for non-compliance and lack of audits, IT audits, for example, right? So in the case of Paytm, like even though these risks and challenges are expected, there is a recurring pattern that has essentially caused RBI to take like very stringent action. So essentially, starting next week, like March 15th,
Hmm.
all Paytm Payments Bank related services will stop to exist. So essentially, around 37 million QR codes that use Paytm in India are going to be useless unless they can do a miracle job of switching it to another payment bank, which it seems highly unlikely.
Absolutely, Abhilash. Even I am a firm user of Paytm, and I'm also concerned. Like, I think 40 people are there in the house right now, and they will be equally concerned. And they'll be equally concerned, Abhilash, as you correctly mentioned, also about the privacy issues, about the data privacy issue, as Ayushi also mentioned correctly, that there's so much data breaching which is happening. Secondly, you mentioned that there is a recurring pattern, even for the convenience of the audience. This is very enlightening to understand that there has been a pattern at the part of Paytm Bank, after which they have taken a very strict onslaught. For
Exactly.
the data privacy, I think Shivesh will come to you now. you are working as a principal consultant, I know you must be having a very strong objective perspectives on this data privacy and data security. What is your take?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Gaurav. Whatever you said was absolutely makes sense. Now, before we go to the data strategy, I think RBI, when they raise these compliances, right, a lot of
Hmm.
their questions were around data, right, because the data was circulating. There were issues with the quality of data, the way they were collecting data, all those issues, right, was they were continuously trying to warn Paytm around it, that you guys are uh, I think flaunting the compliances and all as a eco part system, but there was no proper management around data management. Now, before I start, I think Avilash told a very good point, right? This was Paytm Bank was not a proper. It did not get a proper banking license to do loans or to do the entire banking. It was a part of it to run a kind of a small bank and this Paytm payment or kind of payment bank which came into services, right? And they got this license because I think Paytm was pursued as superpower of tech and data, right? That
Poster
was
boy.
that
Yes.
that was a very key thing over there, because they were the flag bearer of the Indian startup ecosystem, right? Demonetization, they were like, they helped a lot of merchants, a lot of ground zero level, they were able to support the ecosystem, right? So they were the flag bearers. Now in the quest of doing all those, right, there might be intentions which are absolutely right on the business perspective, but on the perspective of handling the personal data, which we call at PII data, right? There were compliances which they need to follow. I understand that being in India, we did not have compliances like we have in Western countries like GDPR and privacies and all, which I think very recently government DPDP Act 2023 came, where Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar has presented it, right? So those things were getting flaunted. Like I am again, like Gaurav, like you, I am a huge fan of Paytm. I use their services, right? I am hooked to their. I was one of their early adopters of the this particular app, because
Hmm.
they have integrated so many services around there, right? You can pay electricity, you can take movie ticket, you can do a lot of stuff. They have their wallet system. They then introduce this payment bank system. They also tied up with a lot of banks also, like Aditya Birla and all, to offer loan. They were calling it as Paytm postpaid, right? But
Waiting
actually
postpaid. Yes.
they were giving it as a loan to a customer. And why they were able to do it? Because they had all these things in background. They have the tech capability. They were processing loans in like 5 minutes. So they used to scan you in 5 minutes and used to provide you those all those details. So they were actually pioneers, and government also, when they were giving the license, they thought, or they had a strong belief that tech power or the data power which Paytm keeps can be utilized to further democratize the ecosystem of the fintech industry. Now, I think these were the points why these all comes. Also, I remember on those part when demonetization was going on, right? So they had this before that only. The government came with a policy that if even it is a merchant account or not only about saving account or Paytm bank account or whatever, you need to be KYC compliance, right? You need to
True.
give your KYC detail around. So they ran this campaign. Every bank would have asked your KYC and all these details. Now, interestingly, when Paytm was doing this, there was a declaration given that when you are giving the KYC, they will be automatically opening the Paytm bank account. So the
Hmm.
consent of people was not being seeked out there, which is a great
Oh.
violation, right? There was no consent taken. Even if the consent was taken, there was no mechanism that they can withdraw from the consent, right? I do not
True.
want a Paytm bank account. I have been given to it. Forcefully, I have been driven it. And how these things were running at ecosystem business wise, very awesome. Going to tier two cities, opening that many account, a small chai wala shop would have capability to open an account, right? That was a great democratization. You do not need to walk to bank. You are purchasing something, you can have a bank account parallelly. You can give your details there, right away your bank account will be open. And they were also running this a campaign where the agents were given almost 50 rupees to open an account. And this
Oh,
all in tier 3 cities, this became a business, right? The the chai wala or the dukan wala who was operating this used to keep 20 rupees, distribute 30 rupees, pick student to go to individual houses and open these accounts. And they were not talking about the consent of and all, because the entire strategy or was to open as many accounts, because investors and all are getting
yes.
pleased out of customer data, right? They really get pleased, and that is where your lot chunk of investment and all comes around. So those were few part of it. And I absolutely think that if Paytm would have done the business they were doing and would have parallelly set up a system, a proper data management strategies, where data governance, their data quality, because they were collecting data, but those were not good quality data, right?
Correct.
So their data governance strategy, their data quality was not there. They would have implemented a good data consolidation system, kind of an MDM system, where they would have consolidated data. Like you would have heard, right? There was a customer for which one pan 100 account was linked to one single pan.
That is
That
data.
was
Data
yeah, yeah.
breach of.
And that could have been easily solved if you'd have a good MDM kind of system, where you could have merged your duplicate customer. RBI also runs an initiative called UCIC, where you have to produce a unique customer identity to RBI. If you have multiple accounts in a single bank, you have to link it. So all those were the minute parts which they were doing good business, but they would have run a IT strategy parallelly to handle their data and to run this initiative. It would have been great. Yeah, it would have
Absolutely,
been really
absolutely.
perfect.
Thanks, Shivesh. They were the real ground insights, and I think all the 45 people in the house will be hearing you. And my request to all the audiences sitting there who are hearing it, guys, engage. I really wish to know, and along with the participant, would really love to know your take onto it. That what you think. Are you having now issues with having a trust with respect to the fintech industries? What's your perspective? We'd love to hear. Now I'll switch to Kaushik, who is an audience representative. I'll request Kaushik, what's your take into it before I go to Ayushi about the capability and AI ML issues? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, guys, for setting up the context. So I was listening to what you guys were saying, and since I belong to the same industry and work for a company which is into the almost exactly the same business, the products, right? Uh, P2P, UPI, and also BFSI. Like we cover insurance, wealth management, etc. So what I want to emphasize here is the importance of compliance and governance from what we do, and how important it is to abide by the regulatory bodies and report to the regulatory bodies in a proper time format and interval, that what you are doing in your business. So that starts from, so what I'm involved from my experience designing and owning the data ingestion from raw source systems. So any fintech company is now, everyone of us is looking forward to go into multiple products and building our own super apps. So we have several sources, right? So when we are reporting, there is a central reporting system in everywhere. So you have to be really diligent when you are pulling your data and reporting it back for the regulatory bodies as well as for the business. So, and also I wanted to question on what exactly was the need of the having your own payments bank. So if you are more into fintech like UPI, P2P, or merchant business, does payment bank actually give you the leverage that you think that you, or they think that they have? So even though we don't have our own payment bank, the merchants are still okay to have their settlements done after a couple of hours through our beneficiary banks, and they do trust us with the same. And as Shivesh mentioned, so implementation of a proper data governance and security framework certify data across all zones when they are moving and we are aggregating data is really important, because there are several regulatory bodies in India. Although, yeah, I understand and I do agree that it's not as stringent as it is in US or the Europe, but still we do have bodies like RBI managing or regulating banking, payments, lending, etc. Then we have NPCI for UPI. If you are into stockbroking, if a company is into stockbroking, they have to abide by the protocol set by the SEBI. When it's insurance, there is IRDAI and likewise, right? So one of the most important metric that we track as a company is how we scale up our monitoring and computing as we are growing in our data size company wise, and we are amongst one of the top 1% companies in terms of volume of data process. So ensuring that due diligence and the vigilance is across all the businesses, all the data is considered during the audit is a really challenging job. We have to be on top of the game. So then also providing explanations of any mismatches, reporting all fraudulent activities. Like we also face a lot of fraudulent activities throughout the day across several businesses. So we have separate teams or the FRA teams who work diligently on that. From and they catch any frauds that happens in across consumers or the merchants, right? And also we implement and use AI ML algorithms to prepare and train our models. And it's also very important, I believe, to audit the data at the most granular level for each source system, reconcile the data report, and also give example of. I'll try to give example of the payments database, which gets powered by mostly like more than 30 source systems. So when you're aggregating data across so many source system into one to prepare your balance sheet or cash flow at the end of the year, or rather whatever your frequency be, it's really important how you can track back, maintain the lineage of each data element, how you are calculating your total high level metrics like key growth metrics like total payment value or daily active users, so that if there is a question from the regulatory bodies, you can easily show them the granular level data and how it was tracked and audited and certified by different systems. So have basically answers for all probable questions that can be asked by the regulatory bodies. So that's where I believe that compliance is of utmost importance to gain trust of consumers, merchants, obviously, but also definitely investors and most importantly, the regulatory authorities. And definitely a robust compliance network or a framework ensures the stability and sustainability of the financial services that we provide. And we are not just kind of as startups or early players in the market, we are trying to inculcate enterprise level ethics and compliance framework that is like being adopted across the world financial institutions. So that's pretty much my 2 cents about it.
Right, definitely, Kaushik. You put the broader context of compliance into the picture, into this whole metrics. And before we reach to Ayushi, I want to read the comment of Prem Nair. He writes that for a common consumer, the Paytm fiasco is a big inconvenience. Yes, there are alternatives to Paytm, but replacing certain products from them, like FASTag, is going to cost a lot of time and money. I understand. Even I use a FASTag. From a B2B perspective, the most common peer, PhonePe, just got more leverage in the setting tone for the market. They can easily negotiate commission and terms for its services due to its scale. PhonePe had over 47% market share in UPI as of November 2023, and now it is about to cross 50%. So definitely, thanks, Prem. I think you have added a beautiful competitive context into this discussion. That PhonePe will be definitely leveraging on this situation and will be watching it as a cat who will be pouncing it even on the slightest opportunity. Ayushi, coming back to
Exactly.
you, there has
I
been a
just
lot of discussion. Yes, please, please, Abhilash.
I'm sorry. I was just because of Frame's comment. There was a news article, I think, from 2 days ago that Google Pay and Phone Pay have hired like thousands of people, foot soldiers, it's what they call them, to go to
Okay.
all these merchants and replace these QR codes with Phone Pay and Google Pay.
That's perfect. That's aggressive. That's perfectly aggressive competitive market. And fintech is growing by 20%. So does it absolutely makes sense to get the greater
Yeah, yeah,
market share. Ayushi,
absolutely. And
coming
what
back to you. Yes, please,
yeah,
please,
yeah.
Shiva.
Yeah, what Kaushik was adding to adding to what Kaushik's point, right? He was asking that why Paytm Bank was required in that sense. I feel because of the ecosystem they were developing, right? uh, all these merchants or the providers has an escrow account where they used to deposit the amount, and the settlement used to take time. They wanted one step ahead to go there, right? So they wanted their own ecosystem to sit there. The way of doing the entire business should be so seamless and so fast. That's what they were trying to produce, but
Oh,
in doing all those sense they was flaunting compliances. That's
that's
what.
great. Shivesh, can you also type it in the comment box? Because the way you have mentioned is that in the
Yeah.
LinkedIn comment box, if you have the phone right now available to you,
Okay.
why I'm
Yeah.
saying, because this thing has to be taken down. That we do not wish to demonize the Paytm Bank. I'm
Correct.
saying this very clearly to all the audiences in the house and to people who are watching the recording. We are not here to demonize any bank, any company, or the regulator. We are trying to have objectively both the perspectives. So Shivesh, it will be really helpful if you can write it there and also comment paste it here also so that we can make it visible. Ayushi, there has been a lot of discussion about capabilities which are there. They are saying that the data governance has to be improved, the capabilities has to be increased. But do you
Correct.
think regarding in the era of AI and ML, was Paytm having enough data, AI and ML capabilities? What's your take onto it?
That's a wonderful question, Gaurav. Just to segue, right? What guys have been mentioning in the chat box also. Now it's not Paytm Karo, it's regulate Karo is what we are moving towards, right? So, in terms of all the technologies which we can use for to make sure that the compliances are resolved, to make sure that the regulatories are being addressed, there are multiple things that can be done. But just a caveat before I add the AI ML, point to that, we need
Yes.
to keep a balance between the technology and the business. There can't
Hmm.
be a mismatch between the technology and the business, right? So in terms of AI and ML, all you need to have the data ready, which I think Kaushik and Shivesh has already mentioned a lot about it, right? But in
Hmm.
terms of AI and ML, I think Paytm could have used the advanced technologies which are in place. For example, they could have used the risk scoring algorithm, which is how do
Okay.
you risk customers, each and every customer. How can you keep tab on each and every customer and score them to understand where they are in terms of credit score, where they are in terms of overall score. Correct. That will help them to understand the customer and also keep a check on them. That's one such use case which comes to my mind. The second use case could be more around behavioral analytics. So most of the data and most of the points we have been mentioning now is more around that there was one PAN number and it was associated with multiple other accounts, right?
Hmm. True.
How do we take care of it? It's all behavioral issues. If you understand the behavior of one person, what is his objectives and strategy, if you track it, I think the problem is solved. And that's where AI and ML comes into the picture. That's the second use case which comes to my mind. And the third major use case which can be utilized by Paytm and other fintech companies is the anomaly detection. How do
Hmm.
you identify the patterns in the data? For example, Paytm itself, right, was charged thrice in the past, in 2018, 2021,
Yes.
in 2023 as well, right? And with huge fine. I think if you ask me, it's a pure case of negligence if we have avoided the past, what has happened in the past, right? But if we would have taken care of some of the issues which has happened in the past, applied some of these technologies and techniques, I think we would have had a better control on the data, better control on what are the anomalies which are getting flagged, what are the patterns in the data that's highlighting some of these issues. So that's the fourth thing which comes to my mind. And the last thing is, we all are mentioning regulatory reporting and compliance reporting.
Hmm.
Every day, at the end of the day, you need to have a look at what's going on in the company, right? What's going on at each level, at each region or maybe at each customer level, and understand how the company is working, what are the frauds that has been happening, etc. That will give an overarching picture of how you can take preventive actions and curb some of these issues.
Absolutely. And a follow-up question to it, the same, Ayushi. Is there, apart from this data issues and privacy issues and this KYC norms, are there any more systemic problems to it? Any more systemic problems to this whole
I think
case?
Yeah, no, correct. You're absolutely correct, right? I think systemic issues goes back to culture. Uh, you
Okay.
know, how the culture is there for the entire. I don't blame Paytm as a whole. I blame the entire fintech industry. I don't blame it as well, but the kind of culture we have, the kind of norms we have. If you look at the current government regulatory and compliances guidelines, there are so many regulatory and compliances guidelines. How can you expect someone to follow all of these? And every year there has been a lot of changes in those regulatory and compliances, right? So I think first is the issue of culture. How do you imbibe a culture in any organization to take care of some of these issues? The second one is you need to take care of these, that should be there in you, is what I would say. You need to hire the right people, hire the right kind of strategies to take care of some of these issues. That's what I
No,
would say, Gaurav.
coming to Abhilash, before Abhilash, I'll read the comment of Pratik. He says that every time we come across a financial sector mismanagement, it gives some insight to strengthen the system, but our system primarily seems to have a reactive regulatory framework, and we seem to have a limited proactive measures. How do you agree with this, Abhilash? And along with this, before you answer this comment, I also want you to answer that how do you think this will impact the innovation, the whole fintech industry? How it will affect the growth trajectory of the fintech?
Understood, understood. And Gaurav, sorry, before that, I just wanted
Yes,
to add one more point, like regarding the systemic issue that you mentioned, right? Like to
yes,
Ayushi.
yeah.
Um, so it shows like some decisions. Like what came to my mind is, I think Shivesh mentioned in the meet that like 50 rupees for every new account, right? So that was the goal set essentially.
Hmm.
So it shows the growth mindset with which Paytm is operating, like, which is not a bad thing, which is definitely not a bad thing. But rather than 50 rupees per account, if that was 50 rupees per verified KYC,
Huh.
uh, that would have been a completely different scenario right now. Um, it just gives. I just wanted to highlight that there needs to be this balance between growth and between these like compliance and like all the other structures
Yes,
that have to be in place.
absolutely.
And yeah, and now like to the second question. So which is yeah, your question is regarding. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I was asking that about the growth trajectory. How far this RBI restrictions will impact the morale, the
Right.
motivation to innovate in the fintech now?
Understood. Like I mentioned, like when we started this conversation,
Yeah.
like wherever there is innovation, there is definitely going to be risks, challenges, roadblocks, like compliance issues. Like for something as I wouldn't call it a sensitive industry, but a highly regulated industry such as finance, banking,
Hmm.
uh, innovation uh, is at sometimes better to be slower and done right rather than fast and like out to the
Exactly.
world very quick. Um, so I feel the innovation is definitely not going to stop. I don't believe that will stop.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
have a lot of different players like we have their key competitors, phone pay, Google Pay, aggressively now trying to hit the market. Like so innovation, I don't think that is going to be very affected. But yes, people like founders or like CEOs have to have this regulatory these
Calibration,
things
yeah.
in their mind always. Yes. So
So they have to
uh,
calibrate between innovation and
right,
uh,
right, not
growth.
growth
See,
for
I,
growth's
I
sake,
think
not
I
growth for
think the
growth's sake.
maturity among the Indian startup ecosystem should grow now. You are
Yes.
capturing business, you are doing, but like the maturity which Western countries have now garnished, the same maturity we need to start having in our Indian startup ecosystem. It is just should not be just about growth or making $1 million or turning it into a like 100 crores revenue or those kind of things, but you should see customers interest and
Hmm.
protect
Absolutely.
all those things. And I think to what you were asking to Pratik Agarwal's comment, right? He has absolutely correctly say over there, he has mentioned that ours is a kind of reactive regulatory framework, right? That's why government has started to act on all this, learning from their past. I think we have seen, we everyone else would have seen the scam 1992 web series, right? The
Yes.
government is ensuring that going forward we do not have any other web series like scam 1992. So they should come and they should act on this, and they are absolutely doing right on it. But it will not stop the innovation which the young generation or the young startup ecosystems are doing. Absolutely not. We are resilient of all these things, and it is for customers interest.
Absolutely. And I think let me read the Prem comment again. Trust in financial sector is not great. Even before Paytm, we may have seen banks, including cooperatives, failing due to fraud. Though Paytm does not seems to have did a fraud, it has failed the basic. KYC is the bare minimum for the sector. One can speculate how complacent Paytm board has been. Now, let me take a turn. Again, my promise was not to demonize the either sides. Now, I want to play as a devil's advocate, or to just bring the Paytm side into the picture. This is Abhilash. I'll focus. Sorry, Shivesh. I'll just come back to you before I go to Abhilash.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
This sector is rapidly evolving sector, fintech sector. It's a new emerging sunrise sector, and this also question is all to the audience who is listening it. In a rapidly evolving sector, the regulations are bound to change, exactly like we are facing in generational AI. The regulations will be changing. The regulatory landscape will be shifting. So isn't it the government that has to make sure that government was responsible, that it has to make sure and explicitly communicate the regulations again and again and again and clear the doubts? In the Paytm defense, I'm asking you. You still think that we need to give a benefit of doubt to Paytm because the regulatory landscape is very fragile, is shifting, is very much shifting in nature? Am I audible, Suresh?
Yeah, you are audible. Oh, that
Yeah.
question was to me.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So what you are telling is absolutely fine, right? And I think government have done their due diligence. So you will not see them acting directly on it. They have been warning Paytm since 2015 when they found all this. So it was not an activity of government which actually came up suddenly. It was an act. So if you remember the news sometime back, there was also the vigilance, the ED was raiding the Paytm offices, especially. So you have to understand you are working in a sector which is very fragile, and that brings a lot of customers' interest there, right? And the geopolitics scenarios also, because we know that Paytm has been the one of the investors or the major investor comes from not so friendly economy to our country, right? So all those ecosystem plays a part. So you are already working in a very fragile kind of working scenario. So now a startup, as a startup founder or a CEO or kind of founding member, you need to have those compliances things and all running towards mind, that it will just not about making business. The compliances and all should be the part of it, and you should have a system, a very kind of, let's say, agile system where you can easily shift towards the running regulations and all, and you can maintain the flow still.
True. Matlab, there was a pattern, Abhilash. I think you mentioned, and Ayushi also mentioned, that there was a pattern to it. So the government gave them the benefit of doubt and gave them enough chances to correct it. Abhilash, before I come to Vaibhav question and comment, I'll ask you, Abhilash, that what do you think is that how to re-win this customer trust? Now the customer trust has taken a certain dent. I'm not saying at the level of existential level, yes, but to a certain level. With this show, we do not wish to again demonize any company. I think Paytm is working extremely hard to rebuild the trust. It's not a substantial trust, but yes, a minor dent has taken place. How do we rebuild it?
Right. And very good question, Gaurav. And so, like you mentioned, like Paytm they are definitely working very hard. It is, and I wouldn't say an existential problem for Paytm, but it is a very, very substantial problem. But I also want to like say something positive. Like they are in fact doing a good job as well in these last few days. I want to highlight. Essentially because like Vijay Shekhar has come out and like given very good statements regarding like the involvement of the RBI. So these statements are all like giving like it demonstrates the transparency, like the commitment to compliance. So that is it shows that trust that like we are still a very honest company. It shows these messages. So clearly there is a lot to do, but still I am personally seeing certain good steps being taken. And
Yes.
going forward, like it is a huge Herculean task for Paytm to get back the customer, like especially if the competition is taking over a lot of this market. Getting them to switch back is going to be an even harder task. um,
Absolutely.
so essentially what they need, like if you ask me, like transparency about what happened,
Hmm.
what they are doing to fix it,
Yes.
communicating it to all stakeholders, this is
True.
definitely key. They also have to give a detailed plan on
Oh,
how they are going to fix their compliance issues, and execute them to the point as well. Like I think this will be a very critical part,
absolutely.
because they have not told anyone like until now that they had these issues, these things were going on. It only came to the public very recently, but now they have to be proactive and they have to make sure they inform all the stakeholders with the same vigor,
Absolutely.
which with which they are like trying to get new accounts essentially.
Perfect.
um,
Perfect. I think, yes, please, please. Sorry.
no, no. And of course, now like Shivesh mentioned, like Indian startups need to mature, and like Paytm has been the poster boy, definitely has been the poster boy of startups. And it is going to take time. Like nobody is going to instantly switch back to Paytm once this compliance issue is and the fines are all sorted. So it is definitely going to be a long game for Paytm. So it will take time. So if they persevere, I feel definitely there is a good chance. If they keep innovating, people will forget
Yes.
about
Yes.
all these things. Like when the
Public
latest new
very
innovation
volatile.
is, yeah.
No, true. I think all the students of strategy in this house, around 40 people are there. I think everybody will be watching that how to overcome it now, how they can overcome a crisis. There's a beautiful lesson to it. Now, for the sake of our audience, I think the phone lines have been opened. If any one of you really wish to get inside, who are in the SCR formal group, they can directly engage with the audience and also vent their perspectives. Yes, I should coming back to you. Yes,
I
please.
just wanted to add a few more pointers to what Abhilash has mentioned, Gaurav. See, what was about to happen has already happened, right? So communication is an excellent strategy. Communicating the wrongs needs to be done now. They cannot hide it, right? Because RBI has already charged everything and they have detailed out the compliances issues, right? I think they can take preventive measures, which is already there are speculations in the market, right? That there are multiple other banks who can take over or do an M&A kind of a strategy with Paytm. And not Paytm again, reiterating what Gaurav was also mentioning in the start, it's not Paytm, it's just the Paytm Bank part of Paytm, not just one communication entirely. So I think M&A is one such strategy which can absolutely help Paytm Bank to eradicate some of these issues, right? See, customer trust was there even last three times when Paytm has been charged by RBI, right? Still, they were
Hmm.
able to have a lot of customers. I think, customer trust can be again won. They just need to take the preventive actions and take charge of what RBI has already given to them. I think that's simple as that is what I would say, Gaurav.
Yeah, definitely, Ayushi. That is one thing. And we have an audience joined with us on the phone call. Sainath, welcome to the show. I really want your opinion about it. Sainath is a great IMK alum.
Okay.
Yes, Sainath. I think everybody is audible now. Is he audible? Yes, Sainath.
Yes.
Hey guys, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity, Gaurav. Hopefully everybody can listen. Is it clear to me?
Yeah, yeah, we can
Yes,
hear you.
yes, clearly.
Okay. So first, I want to just clean up some air because first thing, right? I want to talk few words about money laundering.
Hmm.
Why RBI or any other regulator in the world is so tough on financial industry is because of money laundering. Why KYC is very, very important. The basic building block is to stop money laundering. In money laundering, there are three stages. One is placement, layering, and integration.
Great.
Whatever mafia, hawala happens in the world, right? The main problem for them is money movement. You have so much money at hand, managing that money, moving the money, and putting back into the system is very, very tough. That's
Absolutely.
where all the shell companies, all the small players, kind of, small businesses open. They take all this falsified money which they have generated, right, or money which was earned in wrong ways, they place it back into the system. That is the main thing. They have to convert all of this money which is illegal ways into a legal way, then integrate into the system. So that is why KYC becomes a clear norm.
True.
Okay. So first they place it into the system using these apps like Paytm or any other fraudulent bank account transaction. Then they layer saying doing transfers. For example, I pay to one person, then that person pays to another person. They make a chain of transactions so it reaches to the parent company, which is kind of a legal name. Then when it goes to the legal, it is integrated back into the system. And if you see a lot of organizations, a lot of countries' terrorist attacks has been done by money generated by the self of the country itself.
Absolutely.
So that is the reason, right? Government takes a very, very strict stick in their hand when it comes to financial regulations.
Absolutely.
And we were talking about 1992 scam, but we recently had ICICI video. Now so see, we find very innovative ways to bypass these regulations, and Paytm was one such app, I would call it. And somebody was saying our regulators are bad, RBI needs to develop. I'm sorry, that's a wrong statement. The world's second toughest regulator is RBI. The first is Japan's regulator, the Japanese bank, or Namura it is called. Then it is the RBI, who is world's second toughest regulator.
True.
That is the reason today a lot of foreign banks don't play in India.
Right.
Why are world banks out there open their branch in India? Maybe from the US, you talk about the US bank, JP Morgan, Citi has left us, Wells Fargo, then the European banks. Why don't they come and pay in India? Because the regulations are so tough. RBI ensures whatever money you are making in India should be in India. That cannot leave the land.
True. Capital account convertibility.
Exactly. The interests of the people are protected. The capital is protected for this country. So that's the reason. And now coming to Paytm, right? First, I have different vantage points coming to a Paytm perspective.
Yeah, please.
One, one of the friend was saying, yes, they have been warned multiple times to do a KYC, which they have been flaunting off. Clearly shows it's not ignorance. It is not that we don't know. They were clearly ignorant.
True.
Right? Behind it, we don't know, because the VCs for Paytm comes from a shell country, which is Maldives. And that country, which was funding out Paytm, ties up to China. Now you understand the China. They were wantedly flaunting the regulations for 2 years. Now Paytm Bank is gone. Now ED is looking into, was there any money laundering done? So they are looking at their books. So this is not the end of troubles for Paytm. This is just a start. It's tip of an iceberg.
No doubt, Sai. And thank you for this. Thank you for this beautiful perspective. And to be very honest, money laundering is a topic we were touching by the panelists at the end, at the last. So I will definitely now take your perspective and put all our panelists to discuss this money laundering and this greater issue, of which you a very structural issue you have touched. Thanks, Sai, for being in the show, and we love it. And for the sake of the audience, Sai comes from a banking industry, so we have its very unique insights on it. Thank you, Sai.
Thank you, Sai.
Yeah.
So, guys, that's a very valid point. I want your takes on all three of your takes on this issue that of money laundering. Starting from Abhilash, how do you reckon what Sai said? I know you were touching, all three of you touching about money laundering at end, but now the time is right.
Got it. So, like what Sai said is extremely correct. like me not coming from finance background, like there was a lot of like wonderful information from his words as well. Like from my research, so I believe like Paytm as such has not been involved in any such scandals, but there is a very high risk that it can be used, right? So that is
Okay.
my understanding. I like,
Yeah.
do correct me if I'm wrong. Um, so it is up to Paytm. It is Paytm's responsibility definitely to have these risks in check. So this is a very similar situation as like for example, if you take OpenAI or Gemini very recently, like Google had a big scandal because of one of the outputs of their prompt, right?
True. True.
Like
The
one,
color issue. Yes.
right. So like similarly, like it is up to Google. Google completely pulled that product out, right? For until that was fixed. Um, so Paytm definitely like whoever, like the product owners, they have to really like sort out all these loopholes. Like there will definitely be different opportunities, but as like some of these I believe like in this case what happened was a lot of these were very basic mistakes
True.
that were easily solvable. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So definitely, there's a money laundering issue. Before I reach to my panelist, I think Kaushik, do you wish to add anything from the audience side before we reach it up?
Um,
Anything
Not
onto it?
really. I kind of echo what he said. Just a few points like, yeah, so as part of another company which does the same work, there are asks from the regulatory bodies to present ad hoc and out of cycle audit reports across entities. On also on the company level, there were stricter scrutiny and requirements on the transactions involving the company in discussion. So we are all correlated right here in this small industry that we have comparatively, and it's growing. And also we kind of responded to the sudden shift in market, increase in the number of merchant onboarding, etc. But we have been pretty much cautious and would like to take it a bit slow.
Great. Ayushi, coming to you, I have two questions. Now, then I'll go back to Shivesh.
Yeah.
Ayushi, this first thing is what Sainath said, that there is a larger, broader issue of China and even money laundering. I want your take onto it. And second, there is a question by Web of Tyagi, which is standing there in front of your screen. I need the answers from about these two topics. First Sainath and then Web of comments.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, Sainath, for that beautiful perspective on Paytm and the financial institution. I strongly agree to what you're saying that RBI is one of the toughest regulator. I agree, but still, there are some loopholes which are still pending in the institution which they need to cure, and they are strongly working towards that. Right? I think recently there has been a lot of regulations which are launched, like SOC, like I think the self-regulatory organizations which they have launched, that has helped a lot. Right? On the second one, on anti-money laundering, right? I think anti-money laundering is a very big issue, and I think that's the prominent issue which also Paytm has faced. So, if you look at some of the records which Paytm has highlighted or RBI has highlighted, crores and crores of money were transacted between multiple parties, and that too beyond the compliance limit of that particular day, or the compliance limit which is set by the bank, right? So these issues have creeped in. And not only that, even the parent company of Paytm and the Paytm Bank, there has been several transactions between these two entities as well, but there was
Okay.
no, record of these transaction in the financial, statements of Paytm. I think that has, all of these things have come into light when RBI has charged, charged the entire case to them, right? That's on one. But
Yes.
see, anti-money laundering is not just for Paytm, right? It has happened in the past. For example, the Nirav Modi case, right? In Nirav Modi case, also the same thing has happened. It has happened with Yes Bank as well, wherein what Weber was mentioning, right? This top CEO, a top executive and CEO at Yes Bank in 2000, they were doing some money laundering. They were just, giving some loans to some of the companies or some of the, consumers. And that was, highlighted as money laundering, and they were asked to leave the next day. So there has been many instances which has happened in the past. And I must say that, RBI has focused a lot in improving some of these regulations across the years. But I think still there is a, chance of improving it further, so that, these things are eradicated from the system. It doesn't happen in the future again.
Absolutely. I'll be asking the questions about what's the way forward, the last question. Then moving to Shivesh. Shivesh, I want to ask this again, the comment on first our Vaibhav and Sai comments. I need the reaction on it. And also that aren't our data governance issues are strong enough to grapple this money laundering issue? Because you come from that sector. Are we really focusing on money laundering perspective also as a data governance institutions?
See, first of all, we need to understand that organizational structure, how they are driving it, right?
Yeah, please.
If you'll
Yeah.
see the recent scenarios or the recent, what I think Sai was telling, that technology in fintech is complementary, not everything. Absolutely right. Technology in fintech is complementary, and those complementary is a privilege for doing business, the ease of doing business, right? Which where our government, or let's say our country, is going forward, right? It's all about ease of doing business, and technology provides you a great way of doing ease of business. Just think of all those days where for opening a single bank account you have to run through their doors and you have to come back. Now from the tab you can open, and you can just open an account. What needs to be ensured is when those data comes in, or when those ecosystem is built up, you have a proper mechanism or a strategy on backend system to govern that, right? To govern the assets, to govern the policies around. To, if you are bringing a data management strategy also in your organization, you need to have a governance policy all around it. So
True.
I
True.
think from an
Absolutely.
organizational perspective, right? Currently in the current environment, a role of CDO has been garnished a lot of value for an organization, right? You have been
CDO.
recently CDO,
What?
Chief Data Officer, right?
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
now a lot of CMOs companies, a lot of fintech companies are now replacing their CMOs with CDOs, right? They want a stand-alone data management strategy to run the money to get invested in that particular part, so that they can look into quality data. If there are issues around, they will let their business do the business, but they will let the business know ki, yeah, your data is coming, but you are missing this part, so that you can further enhance those part, you are further enhance those technology to gather those information. So these kind of roles are coming into picture. That's where in current scenario, the data management strategy for any organization, especially an enterprise level organization, is a must. And that's where the Indian startup ecosystem needs to mature and go forward. I have been working with a lot of customers. We have a lot of good stories, Indian startups who are using these technologies to come forward, right? So that's where maturity will slowly start building, and those mindsets will start changing.
Any great insights. I think of all the panelists which we have taken, I'll conclude with you, Shivesh, that you said the CDO role is getting very tightened for the sake of for our audience also. Through this discussion, through all four of you, they will understand that how critical data is to every organization, company, or the institution, and why the role of CDO really matters. I'll again request all of you to add your perspectives in brief in the comment box once this live show is over, so that people have it's like a minutes of meeting, people can recapitulate what you said, because they're brilliant points. They will be lost in limbo if you do not write it.
Yeah.
Okay, now coming back, and I just wrapping it up now, as we have summed up 1 hour. I did not know how quickly the 1 hour goes, how 1 hour went. I just want a final wrap up. I give all four of you 1 minute, from starting from Abhilash. Abhilash, I want 1 minute that our audience right now, there are 35 people in the house. What you wish to tell them as a business leader? What one lesson, one key takeaway they can take from this session? In one.
Got it. So, um, always communicate communicate with your customers. Always engage with the regulators, compliance. You like do not go for growth's sake. Always make sure that innovation is always on par with regulation.
Absolutely. Ayushi?
I would just say, we should focus on the golden trio: communication, compliance, and customer centricity. It's all about staying regulatory savvy, transparent with your internal and external stakeholders, and getting laser focused on delivering value to the customer. I think if we do that, that's going to be helpful across any industry, not only fintech.
Great. Can you enumerate the 3 C's also on the comment so that they can take away the 3 C's you mentioned?
Sure.
Compliance, customer, and customer trust.
No, compliance, communication, and customer centricity.
Great. Please write it on the text box also for the sake of our audience. Shivesh, your 1 minute, what you will want to tell to the audience through this stage?
Yeah, see, absolutely. So I listening to all great insights, right? One thing which I want to add is recently I was attending my company's CKO, right, where a prominent leader was speaking, and also the company CEO came in and told him that in the current environment situation, as an enterprise organization in this cloud era, what do you own? Your server has gone, that is on cloud, right? You have rented it. You have already given it out. It is on rented. Your databases are out. It is already rented because all the aggregators are there whom you have rented. What you own is your customer data.
Absolutely.
The data is the one thing which you as an organization own. That is your. So the privacy, the management, the governance belongs to you. So the role of a CDO kind of is a very important now for organization to run it through. Also, you would have been running a lot of use cases, AI, ML use cases, and all those things are running. But you need to think, is your organization ready for AI? Because generative AI will need input data for you. If your data is not of quality, right, what do you achieve running an AI, ML use cases? You will fail there, right? So you have to think as an organization, are you AI ready? So are your data AI ready? So that is one part which I would like to conclude. That's
absolutely great point. And I want you to write this as a comment also at live so that I can display it on the screen. Are you data AI ready? First, data has to be, then AI ML can work. Please write it down.
Absolutely.
Also, from the audience, do you wish to recapitulate any final comments from the audience or from your sake? Kaushik, are you available?
Yeah, so just want to add to what Shivesh told, right? How you are presenting the data and the authenticity of the data is of prime importance. And any company, be it fintech or any other sector, at least in the Indian context, we should not forget our mission in terms to like achieve the vision, right? Sorry, the other way around, sir. We should always remember our vision while we are trying to achieve the goals or the numbers. That compliance is of essence and everyone has to abide by it, especially in this sector, because we all deal with people's money, the citizens' money. So we will be tracked. It's really obvious, right? So we have to be diligent in that area, and no one can just take it lightly, is what I would
Great. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And I want to thank the audience. There has been consistent 35 to 40 people in the house who have not left. And I want to thank all the people who will be watching it as a recorded video in the later on. I want to thank all of you for your valuable feedbacks. I want to thank Prem Nair, Sainath, Prateek, Vaibhav, Jai Krishnan and JR. Sorry if I missed any name in the comment box which are available. Thank you to all of you. And guys, trust me, this has been only 3 words I have for this session. Delightful, delightful, and delightful. This was absolutely delightful, and all the insights, I really wish if you can capture it in the comments also so that everybody can learn and get something, key takeaways at their home. Thank you, guys. Thank you we have extended by 5 minutes. I thank to all the audience and also the esteemed panelists who have taken valuable insights to their audience, who have given valuable insights to our audience. I really wish to thank all of you. Signing off. See you again next week with a fresh new episode on some current case study, which will be dissecting and decoding live on Strategy and Consulting Room. Thank you. We're ending the stream.
Thank you so much, Karan.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.